Welcome back to another video. In this video I'm going to cover the top 3 training tips for shift workers. We're going to go over training after difficult shifts, make training days manageable, what to actually focus on whilst you're in the gym, and a bonus section, why steroids are for geeks. It is quite fun. I'm going to go over training volume at the end of the video as well, so I will show you that. Please excuse all the cringeworthy pictures of myself. So, should we train after difficult shifts? This is not a real picture. This is just makeup and stuff for a video that I've done a long time ago. If you know, you know. What's the purpose of the workout? What are you going to the gym for? Are you going to the gym to do HIIT workouts? Are you trying to get better at CrossFit? What are the purposes of the workouts? The main thing we want to focus on when we're training is progressive overload, getting stronger in the gym. If you've had a really difficult shift, for example, a Monday back shift was really difficult and you're meant to go to the gym after work, this falls into number 2. Does it make sense to train? Let's say with a really difficult shift, you get held on for 3 hours, you were meant to go to the gym after the back shift, and you ended up going to the gym at 4 o'clock in the morning instead, and you had a really shit workout, but you ticked the box and you got the workout done. Does that make sense, or would it make more sense to just go home, go to sleep, wake up the next day, probably not get held on the next night, get into the gym and progress your lifts from the week before? So these are the things to look at. The whole go hard or go home thing, trying to be super hardcore with it, it's just not going to lead to progress. The main thing we want to focus on is progress in the gym. However, are you actually tired, or are you just being lazy? If you know that you have 3 hours to go to the gym, get ready and go to work before a back shift, and you just decide not to because you tell yourself you're tired, that's completely different. That's just laziness. So try and look at the difference between the two. Are we actually tired? How has sleep been? Do we feel rested and recovered from the previous sessions? Remember, the one thing to take from this is that your muscles will actually only grow and develop outside of the gym. When we're in the gym, we're damaging that muscle tissue. It's only going to grow back and repair stronger than last time if we give it adequate time to grow and repair and adequate nutrition. So those are the kind of things to take from it. If training is manageable, we shouldn't have to. So if you're following these IFBB pros who are jacked up on all sorts of performance enhancing drugs and you're trying to follow their training splits 6 days a week, 5 days a week, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot. You could train 2 days a week, 3 days a week, 4 days a week and still make really good progress, if not actually make more progress than if you tried to train 5 or 6 days a week and some of your sessions were done after horrendous shifts. So if you have a really difficult shift and your training is manageable over the course of the week, you should be able to chop and change your routine slightly so that you can go, right, okay, well tonight I've been held on for 3 hours. Instead of getting annoyed about it like I used to do, I used to get really pissed off if I was going to miss a training session when I first joined the police. Look at it and think, right, okay, well my training's manageable, I've done 1 session already, I've got another 2 to do, there's still 4 days left in the week. The chances are, even though I've been held on tonight, I will still have time for the remaining 2 sessions over the course of the week when I can actually train and progress on from the week before, which is the goal. Progression in the gym is the goal. Now, making your training manageable and how to actually do that. So the number 1 thing to probably look at for this is to plan your week out in advance. On your rest days, let's say you're off Saturday, Sunday, you're then in for work on Monday. So if you're off Saturday, Sunday, plan your week out in advance. Literally sit down and get a diary. I still have a diary to this day, a paper diary, because I'm an old man. I do put some stuff on my phone, but not training stuff, just random shit. So I put stuff in a paper diary. I will plan my weeks out in advance. I know exactly what days and what times I'm going to get to the gym. Plan for the best case and then adjust off the back of that. So as we said, if you've planned to go to the gym on a Monday evening but you get held on a back shift, just adjust it off the back of it. But if you've planned sessions, you're a lot more likely to get those sessions done. If you know for a fact when you're getting home on time, for example, on a Friday back shift, and you know for a fact that you're meant to be training on the Saturday morning, if you know that and you've already got it programmed into your mind, right, okay, tomorrow, first thing I do when I wake up is going to get up, get showered, get my gym gear on and head out and get a session in. It's a lot more likely to get done if you go, I'll wait and see how I feel in the morning. Set it as a non-negotiable, get up and do it. You're probably not going to be that tired unless you've had a really crap shift the night before, in which case you can push it to the following day. So planned sessions are a lot more likely to get done. Plan for the perfect week. You're not going to have a perfect week ever when you're working as an emergency service worker, but plan them anyway. Plan for a perfect week and try and at least get a really good week out of it. When we are going to the gym as well, look at effective workouts versus exercise. I think a lot of people go to the gym and they just exercise. They don't actually have effective workouts. And if we're really honest with ourselves, if we are trying to go to the gym, the one thing we want to do is more than likely lose body fat and build muscle tissue and tone up. That's pretty much what most people want to do. No one really cares about their ability to do muscle ups and all this other crap that you see now, like high rocks, which is basically just for people who are not fit enough to actually go into CrossFit, but they can't be bothered actually going to the gym and commit to a training program. Stuff like that. Like, what is the point in that? I don't know how anyone could feel motivated to do it. So what should you focus on? Am I building muscle? This is the one thing we want to focus on, and it's one of the questions that comes up all the time. Like, how do I actually know if I'm building muscle? How do I know if what I'm doing right now is allowing me to build muscle? So within each training block, focus on progressive overload. It's just an increase in volume. So your volume is going to be your sets times your reps times your weight, essentially. So those three, that's going to be your sort of total training volume. The one thing we want to focus on, now volume isn't be all and end all, or we would just be in the gym 10 hours a day. There is a limit to it, but if you're on a training block that is suitable for yourself and it's suitable to promote muscle growth, if you can then progressively overload those lifts through that training block, let's say it's an 8 to 12 week cycle, if you can progress those lifts, you could probably bet your arse on it that you've added muscle tissue throughout those 8 to 12 weeks if you're in the gym progressively overloading on those main lifts. And some lifts will take ages to progressively overload, like lateral raises, for example. I think I've been doing the same weight on lateral raises for the last year. It's not that fun. But again, think of it as putting pennies in a piggy bank. That's the way to think of it. Pennies in the piggy bank, they will add up over time. Focus on weak areas and make sure you enjoy your training. This is something that I see all the time, like guys who think they need to train, like IFBB pros who are stepping on stage. See, if you don't want to go and train your hamstrings at the gym, don't do it. Like, literally just don't do it. If your hamstrings are already well developed and you've played football and rugby and whatever, don't go and do it. Just go and do whatever you want to focus on. Focus on your weak areas. Again, a lot of female clients I work with want to focus on quads and hamstrings and glutes. Go and focus on them. You don't have to do the same type of training program that a guy's going to do in order to bring up his upper chest and shoulders. You just don't have to do it. So make sure you enjoy your training. If you look forward to going into the gym between shifts and it's a positive thing for yourself, instead of thinking, oh my god, I've got to go in and do X, Y and Z in the gym today, you're probably going to talk yourself out of going just because there's movements in there that you maybe don't enjoy. Detrained or new to training properly, volume, progressive overload, deload weeks, etc. Now, for a lot of us, the question comes, should I go into a gaining phase and get stronger? Should I go into a weight loss phase? There's this mental barrier between weight loss phases. If we're in a calorie deficit, we can't add muscle tissue. You absolutely can. If we're detrained, if you're an athlete that's detrained, if I broke my arm today, let's say I broke my arm today, touch wood I don't, and then was out the gym for 6 to 12 weeks, I would then be in what we would class as a detrained state, someone who has trained and has now stopped training for an extended period of time for whatever reason. I could then go back into a slight calorie deficit and actually get the muscle tissue back that I've lost during those 8 to 12 weeks off. Most people are new to training, and I don't mean to offend anyone when I say this, but if you're not looking at your training, if you're not actually logging your training, if you don't have a logbook of any sort to go, right, okay, these are my lifts from last week on the same movements, these are my lifts from this week, this is what I want to hit next week, that's the way that we need to look at it. So detrained or new to training, and if you're new to training, ask yourself, have you ever focused on total training volume? Do you regularly focus on progressive overload? And have you ever had a deload week? Do you even know what a deload week is? If not, send me a message and I'll fill you in on it. Deload weeks are extremely important, especially if we are working shifts. Your recovery is not going to be optimal when you're working shifts and you're getting 4 hours sleep before an early shift. Your recovery is not going to be optimal, so you may need slightly more deload weeks and even just full weeks off of training for full complete recovery between training blocks. I've only put this one in here because I have heard talk recently of certain people that I know who are thinking about going down certain paths, let's just say. One thing I would say in this is don't even think about it. I have never taken steroids in my life. It is more than achievable to build a really, really good physique naturally. You can make insane progress naturally and not ruin your life long term. The one thing we want to focus on with training is to be healthy overall. That's it. Go to the gym, eat well, try and get your physique to a decent level. If you go to the gym for 2 to 3 years consistently and you progressively overload and you actually manage your diet, you're going to have a better physique than 99.9% of the population. That's the one thing to take from it. Don't ruin your health just so you can have slightly bigger arms. No one actually cares. You will more than likely lose your job as well. Although these things are legal in certain countries, it's probably going to be frowned upon in certain professional roles, so just don't get caught out with it. I've heard horror stories in the past of people being dobbed in for doing things they shouldn't be doing on holiday and getting back to work and getting tested and getting the sack. So although other people, Gen Pop people, could probably get away with it, you will not be able to get away with it. Don't do it. Just don't do it. Most people who are on gear actually look like shit. You wouldn't even know. There's a few people who I know personally and a few people who follow me on social media who compete in untested federations. They're not natural athletes. They do take performance enhancing drugs and they look like shit. They actually don't even look like they go to the gym. A lot of people think this is going to be a fast track route, especially now with social media, posting pictures. They think, right, if I can get my physique to this point, learn the basics. Yes, for myself now, progress is very, very slow. I will be lucky if I add 1 to 2 pounds of muscle tissue every 3 or 4 months. But it's the process. I enjoy the process. I enjoy going to the gym. Don't risk your health with it. That's the one thing to take from it. Just get to the gym, progressively overload. You'll be amazed at what you can achieve with your physique naturally. And again, it actually allows you to stay safe. Keep yourself safe. Keep yourself sane and just enjoy your training. If you did find this video useful, give it a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Stay safe, and I will speak to you tomorrow.